Yeah, like for you, familiar. That's, for example, refer letter to community message.
Yes, Lynn.
I use it. I think
Yeah, because we practice a lot.
the
But
one
if
you
it's
told
with
us to
friends,
practice that one on the desk.
but if it's with
Connected speech.
Yeah, but
I
can't
didn't
find
like
it now.
schooners.
Don't know. Have a look in your all programs.
Yeah, no
Okay, all
idea.
programs.
All programs and look under connected speech. It
Oh,
should
yeah,
be
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Got him?
Yeah.
Alright, drag an icon to the desktop and hopefully it'll stay this time. Okay, morning everybody. Where will we start? I think a few more people will dribble in, so we'll start with our Radio National. How's Radio National going? People listening? Yeah. What sort of things are people, what sort of things are you listening to? Any quick reports? Radio National. Well, the weekend's always a great time for Radio National, isn't it? Just sit back in the comfy chair, look out at the rain. Good morning. Listen to background briefing or science show or something. Who could ask for more?
I didn't listen to the news, not really regularly, but I listen to the mathematical science
Oh yeah?
about the climate change,
Right. What programs were they mainly?
X science, science X.
Science X, is it? Not the science show?
No.
No. Is this on Radio National?
Yeah.
Is it? Or the health report, medical science? Is it?
Medical science X. RN.
On RN. Okay, in a minute you can maybe get up the site and show us which ones you're having a look at. Okay, quickly log in if you've arrived late, because I'd like to be able to show you on the computer what we're up to. Well, we've got the projector, so we'll just do a bit more Radio National. Maybe see RN, very simple. We'll always get you there. Program list. So ABC RN. Programs. We've worked our way down this list a bit, haven't we? Where did we get to? I'm going to dive in here at E, EdPod. EdPod, podcast. Where does this word come from? Broadcast. You know this word, radio. Broadcast. What does cast mean? Group. Oh, that's true. In a theatre, a group of actors is the cast, or in a film, cast. Don't know why it's called that, but a verb, cast, material verb. This is again the strategy of getting basic physical verbs. Cast is this. You cast a collocation, cast a stone, cast a fishing line. So it's throwing, isn't it? So a radio broadcasts. It throws a signal in many directions. So it's just a metaphor, like just about every word. I'm just going to keep pushing this idea of, when you look at a word, have a bit of a dig. Usually there's a metaphor in there. When there is, often, it goes back to material verb, and that material verb is very useful in lots of other contexts, isn't it? Plus, you're probably not going to forget that little story there. Okay, so we've got cast, pod. So back in the 1920s, 30s, when radio came in, this new word arrived, broadcast. Language catching up with technology. Podcast, we get the ability to transfer an MP3. language has to catch up. So it goes back to a very similar idea of radio, but now we're using a pod. What is a pod?
The thing with which you plug in the hole that in which you plug in the thing for the speakers and all that stuff.
Or like
It's not so called pod.
No, that's not a pod. I don't know what you call that. The little hole.
Yeah.
That little end of your headphones, that thing is called a jack. So it's just the hole for the jack. Yeah, not a pod. A pod, very basic kind of. You got your P's, and that thing that contains the P's, the shell. Right? That is a pod.
Oh yeah.
So why a podcast? Because those little, the MP3 players. It's like a little pod. It's got lots of files in it, doesn't it? Lots of MP3s, or these days videos and so on. So it's a pod. See the metaphor? So podcast, again, metaphor, underlying this basic object. Language is metaphor. Language is metaphor. Language is metaphor. Right? And it's an interesting little journey to explore it. And if you make that little journey, take 5 minutes on a good website, learn that, you won't forget it. All right, EdPod, let's have a look. In EdPod, we get lots of little education files on education, schooling, curriculum, music. Anybody here interested in music education? Musician, becoming teachers? What about second language teaching? Anybody thinking of teaching their native language in Australian schools? Usually there's 1 or 2, even part-time. Okay, there's a whole discussion there about language, getting ready for schools, etc., etc. All kinds of different schooling methodologies. What's happening in Asian schools? A lot of testing happening in Asian schools. How do you go beyond tests? This is related to our NAPLAN topic, isn't it, that we've been looking at in the model essays. Good. School in a cloud. The internet cloud, isn't it? So how are schools dealing with IT, etc., etc.? You don't have to be a teacher. You're a student. Some of that might be relevant to your learning methods. You may be a parent, or a parent in the future. Pretty useful to get broad backgrounds about Australian, it's not all Australian, some of it's international research, but there's a lot that's about the Australian education context. Now I'm going into that one in a little bit of detail because you won't find this on the radio. It doesn't exist. You can listen till 3 a.m. in the morning on Radio National, you won't find it. It only exists online. It's only a podcast. So you can only download it via computer. Okay. Don't really know why, but that's what I've decided. Let's push on. I think most of us are here at 20 past. Great to see so many people. Can you get here by 10 past? That's your aim. That's all of our aim. 10 past 9. All right? We've got to be here. I did mention it last week. Some people weren't here. On Friday at 9 o'clock we had 5 people in the room. And really, what can I do with 5 people? If I've got important information, and hopefully everything I do is important, but probably not, but I'm trying to maximise the importance of everything. If you turn up at 20 past, or, dribble, baby. You know this one? Material verb, dribble, when water comes out of the mouth. Dribble. So I call this phenomenon, this effect, dribble. The dribble in, it's bit by bit, gradual, drop by drop, we come in. The dribble in. Yeah, let's not have the dribble in. Let's be here by 10 past. That's the standard. It would be your standard at work. Now, you know, I'm paying you lots of salary here, I know. You know, it's not quite the same, is it? But I have said it helps if, for all sorts of strategies, if we think about this course like work and you dedicate the same amount of hours to this as you would to work, you'll go much faster with what you're aiming at. So let's treat it with the same discipline as, you know, a workplace, and get here by. So it's what you call a grace period, collocation, grace period. Grace period is like a period we tolerate, 10 minutes, 10 past 9. Yeah.
Maybe this comment in Australia.
That
If
term.
they say 9, you don't have to come 9.
Well, it depends on your boss, doesn't it? Look, really, it should be 9 o'clock. Seriously, it should be 9 o'clock. As I said, I kill a couple of cats and, you know, squash a dog on my bicycle every morning, getting here by 9. I expect you to do the same.
Sometimes
Alright.
they say come like 10 minutes before, 5 minutes before to work.
There is a term, this is the other thing you might see, like for example, the talk last week, the solar thermal talk. That is written like this. Have you seen this sort of thing? You sometimes see it on invitations or public events. It means the talk is really going to start at 6:30, but come along at 6 p.m. and there'll be people there and there'll be tables, or, you know, there'll be something interesting happening, but we kind of want everybody there and seated so that we can kick off, slang, kick off, start by 6:30. You often see this for public events. And what they're trying to stop, of course, is that. Because, you know, there are 4 expert speakers talking on solar thermal, and they don't want kind of people just strolling in, kind of like what's happening now. So that's why they do that. So we are this, 9 for 9:10. Alright, and that, and only that, is our starting point. Get here by then. Yeah, it's time management, and lots of people are here by then. And look, I do see a huge correlation between time management and further success. You know, the people who go on and get high distinctions in courses and so on, it's not actually related to language level. You know, I see a lot of people move through here, and there's the usual bell-shaped curve at the end and at the beginning of language. It's not necessarily the high flyers who are really, you know, crash hot, 4 plus, 5, who necessarily do well. It's often the people in the middle, or even less, but they're really organised. You know, they're just managing their time, because you've always got 3 essays to write, and, or, you know, in a workplace you've got a lot to do. Success is all about time management, really. So part of that, what we're all trying to do here, is get, you know, solid on our time management, and it will pay dividends for you. Okay? So I don't want to say this too often, but I want to spell it out explicitly why it's helpful for us all to be here, so that we can just get into things and not waste time. Okay, so there's the first Radio National. We'll do a few of these, just half a dozen, so that in the next couple of weeks we move through the rest. Future tense, if you're into technology. I'll just refresh, because everybody's here now. This is another logistical problem. If you're sitting there not logged on, then you're not going to see the screen.
Sometimes I see it.
Okay? You need to come in, and your immediate job is to log in so that you see the screen. Okay, so now you've got a clearer view. You can see it up there, but, you know, I want to be able to show you directly on the screen. Future tense is technology. So if you're into IT, engineering, whatever, just general science even, there's a lot there that is of use to you. Vocabulary, knowledge, whatever. Moving on. Where are we? F. Health report. I have mentioned health report. The health report. Very, very good. There's obviously quite a few medical people here, as evidenced by our earlier discussion on the OET. But whether you're medical or non-medical doesn't matter. Have a listen to this. It's fantastic material on just research and critical questions. This guy, I've said before, fires really, really sharp questions at the researchers, and you get a lot of understanding of experimental design, good research techniques, the language of science generally, and it's not too specialist, you know. It's the whole thing about this sort of thing in the science show. Any program on Radio National is designed for the average, educated, middle class person in Australia. Probably will all improve our health as well, listening to that. Get lots of tips.
Pretty good.
It is good, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry. Law reports. Actually, I'll come back to Late Night Live. Law report. Obviously about law, but again, not just for lawyers. All sorts of things going on. That one has been interesting case of the coal mines, climate change, etc. You know, regulation of consumer products. That would be an interesting one potentially for you. Temporary migrant has a baby with an Australian. The baby's a citizen. What if the couple splits up? The foreign parent leaves. So legal issues in all sorts of areas of life. Even that stuff, historical, when there was the anniversary of the Magna Carta, not long ago, there were 2 shows on that. Magna Carta was a document signed in 1215 between the King and the Lords, which limited the power of the King. It had a huge effect on British political system, which we inherited. Okay, this one really is probably one of the best shows. I've said before, it's one of the most popular. I do want to revisit it simply because I want to promote it. Obviously, this is about euthanasia, dying with dignity, etc. Philip Adams, key figure in Australian cultural life. He's one of our public intellectuals you could write on next term, if you wish. Journalist, writer. He's interviewed over 20,000 people. It must be getting close to 25,000, 30,000 people over the last few years. Paul Davies is always interesting. He used to live in Adelaide. He's a cosmologist. He's in US. Him and Philip have done many, many interviews over the years about cosmology and astronomy, and he's working now, I think, more on cancer research. But yeah, pretty interesting people continuously being interviewed, as I say, professor after professor. That's interesting because Gerard Henderson is a key right-wing intellectual in Australia, and this guy was a key establisher of the DLP. There's a whole program on our topic, the cultural crisis. Yeah. I'm about 2/3 of the way through marking people's work, by the way. I'll probably have it back tomorrow. All right, so that is Late Night Live. About 2/3 of all downloads on Radio National are from that program, and they're downloaded all around the world. So it's really international standard, and many people are international who are interviewed. Life Matters, this one, is, I reckon, one of the easiest programs to listen to. This would be a good place to start if you're finding it all a bit academic and a bit heavy. This is just about humans, everyday life, about relationships, bringing up kids, cats, etc. Just very ordinary, everyday sort of things, but usually interviews and discussions with somebody who's done some interesting research or got some interesting new angle on things that we're very familiar with, local brands, etc. And yeah, I think the vocabulary generally would be easier. The problem is, let's go into one. No transcript. So I'd say it's the easiest to listen to, But that makes it a bit harder, of course, because you haven't got this check-in capacity. But try it out. Try it out and see what you think. I think because it's easier, you know, you may not feel you need the transcript so much. All right, a couple more. The transcript certainly helps, but I'd say try to go at least some of your listening time, 20-30%, you know, try leaving the transcript behind. That's part of your just development of, you know, independent guessing skills.
Do you recommend to repeat the listening?
Yes,
So
certainly.
One time you listen and another time.
Yeah, I mean, not all your listening, you know, but a certain percentage. What you should be doing is listening to lots, but then it's a bit like the reading pattern, you know. Read a lot of easy stuff. Listen to a lot of general easier stuff, because if it's too hard, you'll stop listening. Find something out of all of these that is interesting and sufficiently easy. Not that you're 100%, but you know, 70% sort of comprehension or 80%. You know? And then maybe every one, you decide the percentage, but every, say, 1 in 4, every 1 in 5, you think, oh, that's interesting, I'll listen to that again. And I'll make that, I will make that the one that I'll really drill into. And you listen, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 times maybe.
Because with one time maybe you don't understand anything.
There's a big difference, isn't there? That's my experience of second language listening. First time sort of like 30 or 40%, depending on the text, and then it often doubles, you know, up to 60 or 80 or whatever. The big jump is between first and second. And then, you know, a bit of an improvement with third, but it's getting less, usually. It's levelling off. So I think what you have to do is listen until it levels off at whatever point that is. It'll depend on the text, it'll depend on you. Sometimes it levels off at 70, sometimes it levels off at 95. When you feel it's levelling off, then you go for the transcript and you have a read and you pick up that extra 5% or 30% you didn't get, then go and listen again with that knowledge, and you'll suddenly hear a whole lot of stuff you couldn't hear before. So you're retraining your brain to hear those fast bits or the swallowed bits or the slang bits or whatever it is that you couldn't understand. Yeah? Yeah, so now you don't want to do that with every single piece, you know, it'll kind of be boring. So you've got to balance these two strategies of listening to a lot of stuff and then selecting the ones that you kind of drill into. But both techniques do different things to your brain. You know, ultimately you're rewiring your brain, aren't you? And you know, that technique is different from that intense technique. It's the same with most sport, most techniques like music, you know. At the moment I'm kind of just sight reading, not stopping to get my sight reading. But then I'll hear a piece, oh that's really nice, you know. So a few days, drill into that. And both those things are doing, hopefully, developing different things. Now it's the same with language. You've got to use different strategies to develop different aspects of the skill. And I'd say those are the two primary strategies.
I find out cannot trust those transcript or the text.
Sure.
Last night,
Yes.
I tried to listen in my YouTube for my essay, the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
And then a couple of articles, couple of YouTube, very interesting. And then I tried to listen, and I put the text on. They totally translate different, miss out a lot of different words.
Shouldn't be.
I
I'm
believe
surprised
that
it's
they
totally different. In my experience, probably on any page of transcript there are 1 or 2 errors.
Yeah.
Like typing errors, or somebody's heard something slightly wrongly.
No, typing. They come up by a computer. And some
Yeah.
of the sound they cannot catch it. I
Right.
tried yesterday,
Yeah.
and then I'm glad I all the way to do it again, and then I said, doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
And
right.
then go back again, and I lost a word like got to be gone. And then they translate got and go and gone like
Yeah.
that. You know,
Do you remember we found some in that
just pick the
first
sound.
transcript we looked at, didn't we? On the science of
yeah, from
language.
YouTube. You see, I
But
tried
again,
to write it down.
wow.
There are lots
My
of
God.
I I have to change it again. This is how to
You've got a job at the
practice.
ABC, Lynn, obviously. You can apply. Transcriber.
Yeah, and then a lot of them wrong. That's why I smash it a lot. You know.
Okay.
Doesn't make sense to me. That's why
Yeah,
don't,
as I say, my experience
listen
would
to
be
those,
1%
yeah.
errors, but I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'd be interested in having a look at your text and have a listen and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
See from the YouTube.
Yeah.
video.
Okay, moving on. Life Matters, yeah. Music show is pretty good if you're into music, but now The Naked Scientist is good. Again, it's a science show. This guy, Chris Smith, now, Chris Smith, on pronunciation, we've got a whole lot of different voices on Radio National, okay? Chris Smith is one of the clearest voices in English you'll ever hear. Why? Because he's that Southern British received pronunciation. Just every single consonant is clear like that. That's how those people speak all the time, like this. And in many ways, that's a relief for you, because no one is swallowing their words. Have a listen to Chris Smith. Not all of his stories are by him. Like, he's the team leader and other researchers are, I think he's interviewing people a lot of the time. But on Friday, regularly in the morning, around 8 o'clock, he is on giving the kind of latest scientific report to Fran Kelly, I think, in Radio National, yeah, on the breakfast show. And the clarity of his voice, you know, that's the sort of target, I think, because of its clarity, that's where you should be aiming. That is that received pronunciation target. Again, I'm not sure if, because it's the BBC, I don't know if they do transcripts. No, I think you'll find, it's just a podcast, but I think you'll find the clarity will help you sufficiently. So that's The Naked Scientists. We'll do one more. Occam's Razor, okay. Short, 15-minute, every Sunday, early in the morning. Instead of church, you could listen to Occam's Razor, you know? Religion versus science. And yeah, these are, take one at random. There's pod again. Look, there's that word. Okay, it doesn't look like there's a transcript, which is strange because they used to have transcripts. This is, they get some academic or scientist, usually Australian, to talk about their research or their thinking, and it's just a 15-minute one. I'm surprised there's not a transcript because there has been in the past. Civility in Japan will show transcript. Okay, so that's a cultural one by the look of it. Usually it's on science, but this could be, you know, sociological science, I guess. Tends to be scientific. But they're kind of nice and short. They're not whole hour-long shows on science. All right, so we're up to O. We'll travel maybe through another quarter and another quarter in the next couple of weeks. Okay, I'm going to switch back to you and go and explore any of those shows we've just looked at. Anything that sparked your interest. Remember that collocation? Sparked your interest. If you're late, log on. We've got about 10 minutes just to explore. The aim is not to listen to a whole show. The aim is for you to get in there, find the program, and just explore it and see what's there, and hopefully encourage you to listen at home, on the bus, walking the dog, in aisle 6 of Woolworths, whatever. There's not working. Let's have a look. I'll just turn this off.